This webinar will be recorded, so this will also be sent to everybody after the webinar has completed. Thank you for joining this afternoon and expressing interest in joining the WEX1 rental pool. This is a very exciting opportunity for you to join the WEX1 rental pool. When you join the WEX1 rental pool, your apartment will be included in the Stock Exchange Hotel. This is a fully managed opportunity to grow your investment, and we are offering an end-to-end solution. There are 4 panelists that will be speaking at the webinar today, namely Jonathan Stoller, who's the director of Signatura. He'll be doing a brief introduction. Garth, who's the financial director of Newmark. He'll be speaking about stock exchange and occupancy feasibility and expected returns. Stefan is the financial manager of Signatura, and he'll be discussing the contracts and how to claim your VAT back. TRACY Lynch, who's the interior designer for Cloud Designers, and she'll be discussing the furnishing and fit out costs. And then I will be answering any questions at the end of the webinar. Please feel free to, in the chat box or in the Q&As, ask questions, and we would love to answer these all at the end of the webinar. So please feel free to ask any questions, and we'd love to cover everything. So over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Kelly. Welcome, everybody. Hi, I'm Jonathan Stoller, the Development Director at Signatura. I was involved in the development of WEX1 right from its inception, and I'm directly involved in future developments in Woodstock, which will make up the WEX precinct that we have envisaged some 5 years ago. You may be asking the question as to why we're introducing a rental pool now, and I'm hoping to answer those questions with the following slide. I'll run through each item. As the developer, we retained 39 apartments in the WEX1 development and created the Stock Exchange Hotel. This is a large investment, and we continually seek ways to improve our investment. As a result of these trying times that we find ourselves in as well, we felt it was necessary to offer our investors and clients an opportunity while the market slowly recover. When we opened the hotel up, we were unsure of its desirability and demand. However, our expectations have been way exceeded. Over the years, we have witnessed Newmark turning away clients when the hotel is full and turning away tour groups simply because the hotel is too small. With the introduction of the rental pool, it gives us an opportunity to increase the room offering. WEX Green, which is a future development across the road from WEX1, it's a future development that we intend taking to the market in the middle quarter of next year. We debated moving the hotel into this new development to increase the size of the hotel. We are intending having 2 floors of shared workspaces in the new building, and this will increase the demand for a hotel for accommodating the future traveling clients. With all the setup costs and infrastructure costs already at the stock exchange, the logical option was to increase the size of the hotel by means of a rental pool. With Airbnb in the building, this comes with its challenges, specifically in management and rate stabilization. We believe that by increasing the hotel and reducing the Airbnb apartments in the building, that this will be beneficial to the building, to our investors, and to our clients. We have incurred already all the setup and capital costs, which will not be increased with additional participants in the rental pool or hotel. There are 2 important points to note at this stage: that there's no guaranteed income in your apartment when in the pool. However, let me start that again. 2 important points to note are that there's no guaranteed income, and your apartment when in the rental pool realizes its share of the income, irrespective of whether the apartment is occupied or not. I would expect Garth will comment further on these items under the Newmark section. Thank you.
Right, we will now be handing over to Garth, Garth, we'll be handing over to you. Garth, as I said, is the financial director for Newmark. Newmark manages both a stock exchange hotel and another hotel of Signatures, which is the Onyx building in the foreshore. So we also have a long-standing relationship with Newmark. And Garth, the MD, the financial director of Newmark, will now be discussing the occupancy, feasibility, and expected returns that you can expect to see should you put your apartment in the rental pool. So over to you, Garth.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Jonathan, and everyone for joining today. Perhaps if you could just scroll down one more page there. One more page. Down. There we go. Okay, great. Up. There we go. That's our portfolio. Great. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with Newmark, we've been around for over a decade. In fact, we've been around for nearly 2 decades. And we started with our first hotel being the V&A Hotel in the waterfront, which was in fact the very first hotel in the Cape Town waterfront. We then went about adding a number of iconic properties to our portfolio, which included Motswari Game Reserve in the Timbavati, the likes of the Droste Hotel in Graaf-Reinet, and more recently the Winchester Hotel in Sea Point. Alongside this, we also looked to strategically add hotels in specific areas where we saw demand. This included the likes of Onyx Hotel in the CBD in Cape Town, Catalyst Hotel in Sandton, La Maison in Mauritius, Tuni in Zanzibar, and around a 16 property portfolio across the whole of Portugal. So that takes our portfolio to around about 35 properties. The benefit of being part of such a portfolio is it allows all the properties to kind of leverage off one another. As Jonathan alluded to, and Kelly, in 2018, Newmark and Signatura collaborated on 2 projects, being the Onyx Hotel and Stock Exchange, and both actually had cracking first years and have been very well received by the industry. Okay, if we can go down a slide. And one more. Okay, so this is the organogram. So this is what currently exists on site at Stock Exchange. What you get at Stock Exchange is kind of a full suite of services. You have your general manager on the ground, and reporting into your general manager, you've got a front office manager, you've got reservationists, you've got housekeeping managers and housekeeping supervisors and agents, you've got a maintenance manager, you've got security managers, and then outsourced is your financial manager. When I say outsourced, Newmark actually takes care of the financial management and the sales management as well. So that kind of keeps everything a little bit independent when it comes to the financial side of it, and allows us to be a lot more transparent where we need to be. If we go down another slide, I think this is the important points that I want to stress as to why I believe those attending should consider joining the rental pool. The first point on the top there is it says protect and harness investment value. And what I'm trying to say here is that through the hotel, we're creating a trusted brand for the whole property, the whole of WEX. So it would protect and probably increase the actual value of your investment in the long term. Point 2, and I know again Jonathan alluded to all of the Airbnb units available, is to eliminate and reduce building incidents. Currently, there are over 60 units listed on Airbnb, and each unit has its own independent rate strategy. So what this results in is eventually you just drive the rate down, and then you have no control as to who your end user or your end guest at least will be. A key benefit is that your unit will be fully maintained. You won't even know when something is being fixed. A light bulb, something breaks, whatever it is, we've got a manager on site, a maintenance manager, it will be repaired and fixed. So you won't have that sort of aggravation. No further capex. When you join the pool, we'll start to build a capex reserve. So what that means is that if your TV breaks or a bed breaks or whatever it might be, we'll replace it through the reserve, and the funds kind of rotate through the reserve. So you'll always get kind of your unit back with everything in it intact and in good condition. improvement of rate yield management, obviously this is key. And again, this refers to the kind of independent rate strategies in the building that's kind of driving the rate down and ending up with potentially the wrong clientele at times. There are too many rate strategies that are taking place in the likes of Booking.com or in Airbnb. And our rate strategy will be a lot stronger if we were more collective and collaborative and came out with one rate, and that would allow us to hold a higher rate to the market. Economies of scale, again, infrastructure is there, costs have been incurred. So really by dropping a unit into the pool, there's no additional operating cost, and the revenue derived from such unit will just should drop majority of it to the bottom line. And then joining a circuit, obviously with our properties all over South Africa and outside of South Africa, having a hotel in Woodstock allows a guest to say, well, I'd like to stay in the waterfront in Cape Town, you know, perhaps go to Woodstock, fly to Sandton, and maybe at a game reserve, and we can connect all the dots along that circuit and kind of do that for any guest that wants it. In terms of the occupancy, and this is more for interest's sake, if you look at the blue lines there, the blue line is our first year of trading. We opened in March 2019, and that was our first year of trading, occupancy-wise. The yellow line is Cape Town 3- and 4-star occupancy. And you'll see, obviously, the first 3 months, we're kind of finding our feet. And then the minute we found our feet from June onwards, we actually really outperformed the Cape Town market in terms of occupancy, which and occupancy reached as high as 90%, you'll see, which tells me that there is huge demand for a property of this nature. And once you kind of reach levels 80%, which you kind of maintained at a certain point in time, it does tell you that more units will just drive more sales. The red line is more just for interest's sake, because I know a lot of you will be thinking COVID and kind of the effect it's had on the industry, which in many occasions has been quite dramatic, and it hasn't been easy. But you'll see that the minute that we're able to trade, which was from around July-ish, around there, we gradually increased our occupancy. And eventually by about August, September, occupancy exceeded 50% and reached as high as 80%, or I think it's around 84% later on in the year. And we've kind of been able to maintain those sort of level of occupancies even today. So we're used to trading in that sort of environment, although obviously we don't anticipate it, as many of you, to last forever. Okay, if we go down to the next slide, the mechanism for profit share, it's really simple. Monthly rental, it's equal to the net monthly revenue. What that is the revenue less any of the expenses incurred. And that is just divvied up on a square meterage basis. So as an example, my unit is 50 square meters, Kelly's unit is 50 square meters. We just basically divide by 100 square meters and multiply by each one square meterage. So we'll be 50% partners on that sort of example. So it's really straightforward, very easy. Then I guess the key question that everyone's asking is, you know, how much can I get as a return from my apartment? So I've put together this graph over here, which depicts kind of, I guess, 4 scenarios. The first scenario is our first year of trading. The second scenario, which is probably not as relevant, which was really last year being a COVID year. The third scenario, which is the next 2 bars, which is kind of the first phase of adding units to the rental pool. And then the second, the last 2 bars is the last phase, depending on how many units we add in the first phase. The red or light red block is basically your fixed expenses, your average fixed expenses on a monthly basis for the entire pool. The blue bar shows the profit for the year that's distributable. And at the top, I've kind of divvied it up by unit on average. So if you look at 2020, the average amount that was distributed per unit was around about 26,500 Rand. But that obviously was after paying municipal rates, insurance, levies, etc., everything really. So everything was netted there. And that would probably equate to a rental prior to any of these deductions of around about 5,500, 6,000 Rand a month. Again, but with no hassles, no worries, and so on. And also a first year of trading. COVID, we actually didn't lose money. We didn't distribute much, but at the end of the day, we actually survived COVID positively. And I guess that was the objective at the end of the year. So actually, as a hotel, relative to the rest of the market, we actually did phenomenally well. And I guess that's a benefit of also having management companies assisting. We were able to make sure that we had the right insurances in place and so on. That also allowed certain payouts to happen. If you go to the next two bars, this is phase one in a COVID and a post-COVID scenario. In a COVID scenario, depending on how many units we add to the pool, we would anticipate the average return to be around 34,000 Rand after all expenses. And in a post-COVID scenario, we'd expect the return to be around 77,000 Rand per year. Also, again, excluding all expenditure. That would equate to around about a rental between 6,000 and probably 9,500 Rand a month. And then the last two bars at the end are in the second phase, again, depending on how many units we add to the pool. And really would like to add as many as 50 if we could. That you'll see that your return is 47,500 Rand per unit, which can go as high as 91,000 Rand per unit, and would range from 7,000 to 10,500 Rand a month if you were to look at it as like kind of a gross rental scenario. So, you know, I think the graph itself, and it's based on the same principles as what we've actually achieved, shows how viable it is to join the pool, not only necessarily from the monetary perspective, but just from the peace of mind that your asset is protected, that the maintenance issues are sorted, that your CapEx issues are sorted, that we can try and kind of push out any bad sort of issues happening in the building at the moment. So yeah, that's me. Thank you. I'll answer any questions at the end as well.
Thanks for that, Garth. And I just also wanted to raise an important point, which I didn't raise in the beginning. Whilst it's not a guaranteed rental every month, because that has been a question that people have been asking me directly, the fact that Signatura has 39 apartments in the rental pool just shows our vested interest. So we are never going to allow a situation whereby the hotel isn't reaching occupancy, because we've got the hugest risk in the rental pool. So I know there was a lot of people's queries in the beginning when they've been speaking to me directly. So that just alleviates that risk. But whilst there's no guaranteed rental, Signatura have 39 apartments in the rental pool. We'll have 39 apartments in the rental pool. Right. Next on, we're actually going to go to Stefan. If you could just pass it down to Stefan. Stefan is the financial manager for Signatura, and he's going to be discussing how to claim your VAT back. So that was obviously a discussion that I've been informing everybody. So when you join the rental pool, your partner, you will join a rental pool. You'll sign a contract, which Stefan will highlight the most important parts of the contract and how you will claim your VAT back. The rental pool will claim your VAT back on your behalf, so you don't have to be doing that on a personal basis, and the actual rental pool will do that. So Stefan will be discussing that and the time frame of that, and he'll be discussing the contract. Over to you, Stefan.
Great, thank you very much, Kelly. So yeah, just to get started, I think the first thing that I want to touch on would be the contracts, because that forms the basis of the rental pool. And what we're trying to do. So there's two contracts of importance to anyone that's possibly going to be joining the rental pool. The first one would be the actual rental pool agreement. And that's the agreement that everyone will sign. So a rental pool is a collective. You can see by the Venn diagram on the right-hand side of your screen. It's a collective venture between a lot of different parties all entering into a rental pool agreement. It's almost like a partnership agreement where we all are bound by this agreement. So you'll see on the right-hand side, we've got the current stock exchange hotels apartment. That's mainly, or that's all Signatura-owned apartments. That's forms part of the hotel. But what we're saying now is Signatura and everyone else that wants to join, all of us will sign a rental pool agreement, and collectively we will form this rental pool, which you'll see in the middle of the two circles, and that will become the rental pool. Now, the rental pool, you can structure it in many ways, which I'll also quickly touch on just on the next slide. But I think that's the most important thing. So that's your first agreement, and that's the actual rental pool agreement. That agreement will then establish the rental pool. It will also appoint the rental pool operator, and it will include all terms and conditions applicable to the rental pool. So those will include things like the participation ratios, which we'll all go and calculate and make sure everyone's happy with. So you'll physically sign an agreement, says that's my participation ratio. It will include the formulas in terms of how you're going to calculate the monthly distributions. It will include the duties and responsibilities of all parties to the agreements, the duration of the agreement. It will set out the uses of the property, and if there's any, when the property forms part of the hotel, when there's what personal use of the property it allows. It will address what would happen in the event should anyone in the rental pool want to sell the property. It will also address the exit and notice periods, which Kelly just asked me earlier to mention. There will be a 1-year notice period. It will address all of the VAT as well, but just on a contractual term. We'll touch on the VAT now, and we'll also appoint a rental pool manager. So that's getting to that. That's the next agreement. So the next agreement will be, as soon as this operator has been appointed by the rental pool agreement, that operator will then enter into a rental pool management agreement. And that will be the manager of the rental pool will be the entity or the person responsible for the day-to-day management of the operations of the hotel. So yeah, that's it on the contracts. Those are the two main ones. So just go down to the next slide, please. Okay, so the next thing to touch on quickly is, as I mentioned, would be the corporate structure. So as I mentioned, now all apartment owners will jointly enter into this rental pool, which will effectively form this rental pool. Now I think the most effective way to house this rental pool would be in a private company. So at this point, we are looking at either establishing a brand new private company that will house this rental pool, and we can clarify the structure of that in terms of the shareholding and directors later on, but it's really going to be a vehicle for housing the rental pool. It's going to receive income and it's going to pay distributions. So it's really going to be, at the end of it, its income statement and balance sheet should basically be zero. But as mentioned, that's something that we're going to consult the auditors and lawyers on to figure out what the best approach would be. We have the option of possibly also using the current management company of the stock exchange hotel, but at the moment it seems like it's going to be better to establish a new company. Then the next thing would be for this operator of the rental pool would be to appoint the rental pool manager. Now, the rental pool manager in this scenario will be Newmark. And Newmark's going to be responsible for managing the rental pool itself and managing the stock exchange hotel, which is the day-to-day operations. So that's it really on the corporate structure. I think if you've got any questions, just ask them. Things can get quite confusing, and especially now with the VAT that's coming up. After that, and last thing from my side is on the VAT. So the first most important thing to bear in mind is that the VAT's always the responsibility of the operator. So there's no scenario where any of you as an individual owner will have to do anything in terms of the VAT. The operator of the rental pool will take care of that. Another important thing to note is that the operator of the rental pool under the VAT Act is seen as a principal instead of an agent acting on behalf of the owners. And that's why the operator can actually claim the input VAT on the purchase of the units, or that was initially paid on acquiring the units. Your input and output VAT will be accounted for using a single VAT registration number. So there will never be a scenario where each owner will individually have to have to struggle with VAT returns and those kind of things. The rental pool will register itself for VAT, and the rental pool will handle all of the VAT matters on everyone's behalf. Okay, then getting to that, the VAT that was paid by everyone when acquiring the apartments. As soon as those apartments are placed in the rental pool, and because the rental pool is seen as a principal, it's almost seen as if the rental pool has purchased these units itself. And therefore, because the rental pool is producing taxable supplies, it can claim the input tax that was initially paid on the acquisition of those units. Second to that, if the units have been sold in between, so from the time that any of the owners might have acquired the units from the developer and it's been on-sold to someone else, the rental pool will still be able to claim the VAT, even though transfer duty might have been applicable. There's still a notional input tax available to the rental pool there. So the next thing would be as what to do with the VAT input that the rental pool is claimed. Now, so obviously the rental pool will submit their VAT returns to SARS. SARS will pay out the money to the rental pool. And at the moment, there's one of two, or basically two main options that we're looking at. The one would be for the funding of the fit out of the unit, so that's the furnishings, etc. And the other one would be to actually pay out that VAT to the individual owners so that they can apply it against their bond and save interest on monthly repayments. But that is just to highlight, that is our understanding of it is that it's an optional thing. So you as an owner can decide if you want the rental pool to claim the VAT back on your behalf. If you don't want it, if you want it to stay as is and you don't want to sit with the, which I'll touch on just now, the admin of paying it back later, that's also more than fine. So then the next point, and that's probably the most important thing under this section, is when after the VAT's been claimed, and let's say, for example, the US owner elects to take the VAT or to take the VAT out, when you exit the rental pool at any given point in time, that VAT will have to be paid back to SARS, not at the initial cost, but actually at the open market value of the unit concern that's being taken out of the rental pool. So we were running through all of these good points in terms of claiming the VAT back, and that's sort of the catchphrase at the end, is it is repayable to SARS. I think the point following that would just be to say, okay, what would happen in the event that an owner decided to take the VAT input and exit the pool, say after 5 years? What would happen in that scenario is the rental pool agreement will make provision for the return of the VAT at the required, because it's the rental pool's obligation to pay the VAT back. The rental pool will make provision in the rental pool agreement for the X amount of VAT that it needs to pay over to SARS to be returned to it by the owner before releasing that unit again. And then just two quick things below that would be, and that's probably just because that would be questions that come up. So if anyone ever wants to sell any of the units, if the unit's in the rental pool and it's sold to someone externally and they decide to keep it in the rental pool, there's no VAT payable on that sale, and there's also no transfer duty payable on that sale. The only problem arises when that person that you sold it to wants to remove that unit from the rental pool, then the VAT would become payable to SARS. So I almost want to say, in summary, the real trigger is removing the unit from the rental pool. And that is it from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Stefan. So yeah, any more questions relating to the VAT or the contracts, please just pop them in the queries below. We know we'll be able to answer them if you've got any other queries. So next on, we're going to move on to Tracy. So Tracy was working for herself for TRACY LYNCH Furnishings before, and that was the company that basically we went to them and they did all the fit outs for the 4th floor. we wanted to do something special. We wanted to, you know, create this amazing hotel in Woodstock. We didn't just want to furnish the hotel with everyday furnishing. So Tracy spent a lot of time, and she went to local designers in the Woodstock area to uplift up and coming designers, and she can talk a little bit more to that. And that is how we've got her involved. Again, we've gone back to Tracy to bring her back on board, as we want to keep the standard of the hotel at the standard that it is. And now I will be passing over to Tracy to explain a little bit more. So over to you, Tracy.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everyone. So the Stock Exchange has been one of the most wonderful projects to work on in my career. The Woodstock area is a very interesting area. And when I was approached by Signatura to get involved, I immediately wanted to reflect what the area had to offer. So when you visit Cape Town, you're absolutely spoiled for choice. There's so much on offer. There's so much nature. There's the waterfront. There's city center. But a lot of travelers actually want to access the creativity on offer in a city. And of course, where do they go to for that? In Cape Town, it would be Woodstock. So Woodstock is an area with a deep history. There are a lot of interesting things that you see as you drive through Woodstock. And one of them that stands out, of course, are the graffitied installations. So massive artworks that adorn buildings that really give character. So not only is the character in all of the buildings that you experience, but in these individual artworks. So this was a big driving force for me to want to try and bring some of that character of Woodstock itself into the spaces, as well as the furniture makers and creatives that live and work from studios in the area. So I thought it would be a fantastic idea to only procure pieces from the area. So really that's how we went about creating the Stock Exchange Hotel. And we had 3 themes. We wanted to work with color and pattern, we wanted to work with art, and we wanted to work with urban jungle. So we wanted guests to be able to come back for different experiences. So the hotel became a very creative project, and it also was very much about giving back and making sure that we could immerse ourselves in a process that saw others benefiting from the project. So we procured everything from these local designers and creatives and worked with graffiti artists. And it really was incredible to see the community, the Woodstock maker community featured in this very special hotel. And Visi, our local design publication, did a beautiful story. And I think it attracted a lot of visual attention because it is quite striking. So moving forward, it became important to look at your apartments. And if you do want to integrate them into the hotel, how could you do that in a way that facilitates your guests having the experience that they're coming for, but not need to spend an extraordinary amount of money in refurbishing, because obviously everybody has furnished their apartment. So it's really about getting those apartments to a standard that is acceptable. One of the things that was really inspiring was a few weeks ago when I visited the hotel, not having visited for some time, and seeing the quality of the rooms and how well they've held out for over the last few years. They're really fresh and still very vibrant. And I was really transported and excited to see that. And one of the key things, you can go through some of the slides, I think, is just to see how we've brought in color. So yes, there's a lot of gray and there's that wonderful gritty industrial feel of the texture on the ceilings, but we've got all these pops of color. So one of the things that we're proposing as part of the refurb is to bring in some white and freshness, and then to bring in a painted color to a dado heights. And we would propose those colors so that they reflect the identity of the hotel. And it's not a case of wondering whether you're going to get it right. We'll facilitate those choices for you so that your apartment is in keeping with the aesthetic direction that we've chosen. Here on the screen at the moment, you see the urban jungle room that's got this incredible vibrant green. And all of the colors work really well with the grays that are very much part of the architecture, but also work really well with a lot more whites. We did use wallpaper, that does come in at expense and can be facilitated, but as you can see in this image, the white and red also does a beautiful job. Another thing to draw your attention to is the white linen, which will be included. Crisp white linen goes a very long way to elevating the quality level of a space. And then what we want to do, as you'll see through the slides that we'll work through now, is call on some of the designer makers that we've worked with to put together a package for you. So some of the key items that are real touch points are things like side tables, things like the dining room table. And we found that using more luxurious materials like timber, really, they do stand the test of time because you can resurface them, and they go a long way to enhancing the luxurious experience of the apartment. So it's not about creating a faux high-end experience. It's about quality of finishes that stand the test of time. So side tables are important, and then the dining room table, we noticed that a lot of the finishing on pieces that are not timber, they actually don't wear well at all, and you see yourself having to go back and replace the piece anyway. So a simple table from, for example, Pedersen and Leonard or Saks Corner would go a long way, and actually are pieces that you will have for the rest of your days. Beautiful light fittings are also an option to add if you haven't done that. And in the package, we would like to facilitate a few of these key items. But we would also make recommendations if you did want to add more comfortable seating that was in keeping with the aesthetic, or if you wanted to invest in a bed base, or if you wanted to invest in a couch, which we believe would really stand the test of time. What we notice is a lot of the pieces are quite worn that we've seen, and some of the pieces we are recommending will definitely be a once-off investment. And should you sell the apartment, they will definitely be something that you'd be proud to include in another space. Yeah, so some of the pieces that you're seeing here, we'll just page through them, are stools or side tables, all very simple and in timber finishes. Can keep going. They've got a youthful feel. They're very much loft, and they all saw that proudly South African made, designed and created in the area. Here's the lounge area of the stock exchange. And as you can see, it's a really wonderful, vibrant layering. So that's something to keep in mind. Adding some layers to your apartment also adds to the experience of your guest. They feel like they've been surrounded by luxury, but actually these finishes are really hard wearing. The fabrics that you're seeing here, and in fact, the carpet itself, which is an important key element, which we will also add, it's an outdoor carpet, which means it's fully washable. So the longevity of the pieces that we are proposing, the fact that these pieces will look good and stand the test of time, we know that the investment must be great from, when we're going to go out and put this package together. Not only is it about supporting creativity, but also presenting you with quality options that reflect the creativity of the hotel. Just go through. Yeah, there you see 2 couches from Saks Corner and Dark Horse. These are the lovely simple chairs with beautiful timber details. These pieces are very well priced, and we want to include them in the option that we suggest would help you make the choices. And what we'd like to do is put the package together so that you could perhaps choose 1 or 2 colors of pieces, but that you don't have to think too much about what's going to work. And then we would facilitate the procurement of these pieces so that it's not a lot of time spent for yourselves. Some of the Miyabi chairs that have pattern and color that we bring in. And we can move on. And some of the servers or the TV units that could be options. And then the end of bed, it's really important to have a place where people can put their suitcase down. And we found that these beautiful benches by Pedersen and Leonard work really well for that, and they're really well priced. So these are some of the key pieces that we believe would really enhance your apartments and make a space that you really feel proud to come to, that it reflects this beautiful hotel, this beautiful designed aesthetic, and that you really are part of something extraordinary. And a little bit more from Saks Corner. And these are some of the outdoor rugs with some graphic patterning. They wear exceptionally well. Some of the lights that we would propose. And some more of the woven lights. So here you see a breakdown of what we're looking at. And I think Kelly will take you through that, but you can see we've put a cost of 20,000 Rand for the furniture, and we'd like to come up with a package for you that really covers everything in that amount of money, excluding bigger pieces, like, for example, a couch. But if you wanted us to procure that for you, we could. So that's really all from my side. We'd love the hotel to be this incredible creative experience for guests to come back to. And if you're part of that, I think it's something you'll be really proud of. Thanks very much.
Hi, thanks, Tracy. So I'll just be talking through the costs right now. Just hold on a second. I'm going to be talking through the costs right now. So as you will see, there is a furniture cost of 20,000 Rand. So Clayton, I did see your query regarding if your unit is already furnished, do you need to refurnish it? So we are not saying to you, if your apartment is already furnished, that is absolutely perfect. We are just suggesting, and we are trying to say, we want to choose 4 items that we originally had in the items, about 20 items in the apartments, to choose 4 items to get your apartment to a standard of the hotel. We need to keep the standard of the hotel all aligned. So that's why we have got a fee there of 20,000 Rand. So Clayton, for instance, if your apartment is already furnished, we will absolutely keep your bed, we'll keep your table, we'll just add 4 items that you can choose to get your apartment to the hotel standard. Of course, if your apartment isn't furnished at the moment, that 20,000 Rand will be higher, but we are just saying, we are just basing this on majority of people's apartments are furnished. Also, just to note that, of course, this furniture doesn't remain the possession of the rental pool and belongs to the sole owner. So for instance, if you choose your 4 items, those will be in your name. We will obviously also give you the choice, we'll present 4 different packages and you can choose package 1, package 2, package 3, or package 4. So you can be involved in the furnishing process as well. And of course, as Stefan has mentioned before, we will be able to finance this for you so that you don't have to outlay the 35,000 Rand when joining, and then this can be deducted from your VAT when we claim that back for you. So I hope that answers that query. So the first item is the furniture. The second item is the door locks. Obviously, these are standard door locks throughout the rental pool. Linen, we want to completely give everybody new linen, which will be about 3,000 Rand. The safe, a safe in everyone's apartment is 2,000 Rand. If some of your apartments already have a safe, obviously that can be deducted. A luggage rack of 450, an iron and ironing board, room smalls, those are just for odds and ends, the odd little painting to incorporate into the rental pool. And then this is a big one, it's the aircon. So obviously that is a hefty cost. We have now included portable aircon conditioners in each apartment, because that was a review we were getting on TripAdvisor and Booking.com and Airbnb that the rooms needed aircon. So we went along and we put air conditionings in all of the apartments. And then a hairdryer, and then a prepaid meter. This will be converted from a prepaid to a postpaid meter system. So that is where you get your cost of 35,000 Rand. Obviously, we can discuss this on a personal basis, depending on the standard of your current apartment, but this is just a basic cost. Julia, sorry, I'm just going to just answer Julia's question here. Julia, my apartment is unfurnished, but I live in Germany and can't do the furnishing. Would there be a full package? Absolutely, Julia. We'll put together a full package. We'll put together a full package for you, and we will take care of this. So we can do this or remotely. We'll send you 3 options of 3 different rooms, and we can do this for you.
Yeah, sorry, just on Kirsty's question, I don't know what I was doing when I was trying to answer it, but I'll just answer it, yeah, if that's cool. The question is the difference between an Airbnb guest and a hotel guest. And I guess it's a whole experience that the guest encounters from the minute that they check in to, the evening, their sleep, everything to when they wake up in the morning. What often happens with Airbnb guests is that they arrive, there's no one to meet them. They then start complaining about the services and so on. So you don't really get much from an Airbnb in terms of the service. And we've kind of got a 24-hour service there. So if there's a problem, if there's a noise next door, whatever, we move our guests, we do what we got to do. The reality is that you know, yes, of course, in the building, you're always going to potentially get a cheaper price so long as Airbnb is there. But really, all that does is actually take away from the entire building's experience. I mean, the most recent incident we had about 2 or 3 days ago was, you know, about 10 guests staying in a 2-bedroom apartment. You know, that's the sort of thing that one gets when you are selling at a very, very low rate on Airbnb. So it really does add to the credibility of one's booking. One feels a little bit safer booking a hotel room through a trusted site. I'm not saying that Airbnb is not trusted, but I guess, you know, booking it through Newmark. And they do get that entire experience from check-in through to check-out. So, you know, I guess as well as the fact that it's fully serviced. And when I say it's fully serviced, there's obviously housekeeping, which is daily. You know, there will be, you know, there's gowns, there's slippers, there's amenities, all those sort of things are there. So it's like you really are staying in a hotel, and you'll have the benefit, all the kind of bells and whistles that comes with it. So, you know, I haven't experienced an Airbnb in the building yet, but, you know, from the feedback we get and the complaints that often come, you know, it's often directed at the hotel when we're actually not even responsible for it. I can see the frustrations that guests often have. Yeah, and the last thing you want is like an international guest is to arrive at a property in Woodstock and there's no one to meet you and you don't know where to go. You know, that's kind of a real disastrous thing to happen, and you know, negative feedback will only come from things like that. So it really is a service offering that one gets. I hope that answers the question. Cool.
We're just going to go through some Q&As. So Kirsty, that's been answered. Will I get the 15% VAT back on my purchase price? This will be at 14% because that is what that is when you bought your property. It was 14% and not 15%. Is that correct, Stefan?
Yes, that's correct, Kitty.
I just also want to mention something that we've also maybe have skipped past. Just with regards to the transparency of the rental pool, every month owners will receive, and we can show you this from our Onyx Hotel as we've got a rental pool there. Every month on the 26th or the 27th of the month, you will get a full owner statement, which is very simple. We try to keep things very simple here. It will literally say the distributable profits, and it will show according to your square meterage and what you will be getting every month. And the following day, your amount is paid into your bank accounts. Again, questions, if it's full transparency, if you would like to see a breakdown of what were the sundry costs, what made that up, we'll be able to send that through to you. Obviously, you know, we've got to have full audit trails, etc., etc. So it's 100% transparent, and every month you'll be able to see the net distributable profit and what yours is, and that will be sent to you on a very simplistic owner statement every month. So I just also wanted to highlight that to you. Jacob, what about my parking lot? Will it be included or can I rent it out separately? So normally speaking, you would put your parking bay in, you know, with your units. But again, this is something that we can speak to you on an individual basis about, you know, if we do have a little bit of surplus parking at the WEX building. So, you know, if you wanted to rent that out privately still, I'm sure we can come to some kind of agreement. So don't stress about that. We're more than welcome to.
It's a really good point,
Yeah.
I think, that Jacob raised, because generally from a hotel perspective, I mean, traditionally you would have, you know, needed around 30% parking bays per room. But nowadays with Ubers and so on, it's less and less parking actually required. So it's a good point raised, but obviously the question has to be answered by Signatura. I doubt we'll need many more bays to answer that question. So I'm sure there'll be something that they can work on.
I'm sure, Jacob, we will be able to, we can come to an agreement whereby you can rent it out on a private basis. We're not going to be difficult in that essence. I just want to see, we've answered that question. So we've answered that. Well, we've answered that. And then just with regards to timing, I know that was a question answered earlier. Our aim is, the basic timeline is we are basically in September now. September, the idea would be to answer a few more queries from owners and to start signing up the contracts. October, we would use to do 1 or 2 furnishings in your apartment, and our idea is the commencement of 1 November, the start of the festive season. We hopefully are going to have a good festive season, and that is when we want to start. I did answer the query now, as we know people have prior arrangements regarding long-term tenants and when they've got structures in with regards to Airbnb managers, and we completely fully understand that. So again, we are completely flexible. If you've got a tenant till the end of the year or early next year, we are very happy to work with everybody on an individual basis. And again, we're not going to be completely, it's not a 1st of November or you can't join. We will deal with everybody on an individual basis. But again, we do want the majority of people joining for the festive season, as we are very optimistic about the November, December, January season. Are there any other questions? We'll just let everybody have a few more minutes to answer a few more questions. And then the next step is going to be, we will send you this webinar and more projections so that everyone can read through it. And then I will be in contact with everybody on an individual basis to start getting the ball rolling. And if you do have any questions after this webinar that you've thought about, please don't hesitate to email myself, and we can meet, or we can answer them over the email. Can we retain our prepaid meter? So in terms of your prepaid meter, Sam, it's just much easier to do it as a postpaid. It's just a very basic conversion. It's just very easy it's just from a managerial perspective. But again, if that is going to be a make or break for you, we can deal with this I know you do have more than one apartment, and I can be in contact with you regarding this point, Sam. That again is a valid question, and it's totally understandable. So I will be in contact with you. I'll just discuss it with Jonathan and Garth, and then I will get back to you on that point. And then I think just to finish off, just to highlight the importance, the fact that it's a fully managed system. So, all you basically doing at the end of the day is paying your rates. We would pay your rates for you, but unfortunately, because it's directly to individual owners from a managerial perspective, we can't do that. But it's a complete managed system. On the 26th, you get your statement, you get your income 2 days afterwards. We don't let you know when a hotel guest is complaining because they don't like the apartment there, and we deal with everything. I just wanted to highlight that point. But I think we've answered. There might be one more query here. Is that all? Yeah. Those are all the queries, all the Q&As for now. I just want to say thank you so much for everyone for joining and for your time, and have a great evening, and please be in contact should you wish to ask any more queries.